Hello. For this discussion board number 8, I'm going to be explaining my own words, the four types of differential reinforcement, which are DRI, DRA, DRO, and DRL. So the first one is DRI, which is differential reinforcement of incompatible behavior. And in the lecture, the definition was one that makes engaging in the target virtually impossible. Basically, like the professor said, sitting and standing up at the same time, you can't have those type of behavior. And you're trying to reduce the behavior without using punishment, because punishment should be like the last resort whenever you're trying to improve a behavior. It did take me a little bit of time to explain it, but how I understood it, is that if there's a child that can't stop hitting other kids in daycare, the incompatible behavior would be allowing that said child to have quiet time or alone time, or occupying his time while with using some toys, so said child is not constantly hitting. But the punishment is not, there's no really a severe punishment, if that makes sense. And then next is DRA, which is differential reinforcement of alternative behavior, which is rewarding a dissimilar behavior but one that is not incompatible with the target behavior. Basically, like the example on there, having a student that is constantly answering questions during class but without raising their hand, having them raise their hand and then was able to answer the question at the same time. So that's two behavior happening at the same time, but you're rewarding them by giving them the chance to talk, but having them raise their hand first. And then the third one is differential reinforcement of other behavior, which is DRO, and that one means reinforcement for the absence of the target behavior for that time period, which is 0. There's no behavior happening at that time. So because there's no, there's not a child hitting another kid, or there's no kid interrupting by not raising their hand, you still reward them with something because they haven't technically done anything wrong for there to be a behavior change. So it's basically doing absolutely nothing and the absence of a behavior. And then lastly, DRL, which is differential reinforcement of low rates of behavior, and that is a reward. A reward is for a level of performance of a target behavior that is reduced compared to the baseline. So basically, as I took it, is that there is a problem happening, but not in a big manner. So the rate is very not so much disruptive. So there's no like a scene being caused or anything like that. And another example that I took that made me understand better was the example of the kid that is constantly disrupting class, answering the question whenever a teacher asks, but without raising their hand. So having them actually raise their hand before being allowed to speak shows them that they're still able to talk, but also limits the time of how many times that person is allowed to speak during class, since so now instead of constantly answering the question 10 times, maybe the teacher allows only to be answered 5 or 6 times instead.